spent my first 15 years trying to get out of the woods because I thought it was horrible. And I spent the next 20 years trying to get back. The truth of the matter is we need to be well-rounded individuals like our forefathers were.
And here we go again. Everybody, who we got in the chat today, man? Look here. Mama Gnome, first in, Battle Gnome second. That doesn't count, though. You guys are kind of right next to each other. You can't, I mean, I would assume you are. Teresa, FIB, Loki's, let's see here. Yeah, we got a bunch in there. Bunch of awesome people up in the chats. Amy Jennings, man, good to see all y'all tonight. I've been slacking. I haven't been doing a lot of media. I tried to take a media cleansing for this last month. After Mountain Readiness, it was just 2 to 3, 4 hours a day of media, just trying to get stuff rolling for Mountain Readiness, the expo there. And then at the end of that, I'm like, I just need to take a break and not stare at phones and Facebook and all that kind of stuff as much as I was. So, but we're back in the saddle again. Down below also, who was out and about, but he's back now, is the Triple G, Mr. Brian with Survival Gear BSO. What you been up to, man?
What's up, everybody? Well, I've been hobbling around here. I got a busted up leg, so I'm not in my usual spot. Chilling on the couch with the leg propped up, so hobbling around like an old geezer with a cane right next to me here.
We just saw the cane, the pimp cane, when you went to stand
up
just a little bit earlier.
I struggled to get up off the couch.
That's, it happens. It happens. What are you going to do?
New things in the works, some new projects, a couple new bug out bags coming out. One of them with Joe Tedai.
Nice.
So working on that. Yeah, we finally got all the gear in, and we built a bunch of the bags. Got one sitting right next to me here. So we were working on a few things. Sorry, I've been around, guys.
Awesome. Hey, Survival Homestead Teaching Farm. What's going on to Mr. Triple G back at it? How are you guys doing out there? Awesome. And what was Mama Gnome saying there? Nope, I don't say nothing to him. We completely all right. You guys are just on it tonight. That's what it is. But next to me, of course, is this guy. He's a living legend. He's one of the only guys that no matter what story you tell, he's got one that'll one up you. I kid you not. You can never one up Sue on a story, because he's lived like 3 or 4 lifetimes, but a true living legend, a Renaissance man, Mr. Don't call me Seaux Larreau. Don't call me Sue, Rod Seaux Larreau. What's going on, Sue?
Oh, not much. I just the wife and I just finally got to do a anniversary trip, and we're just getting back from the Virgin Islands last week, so had a good time down there. And I think she's in love with island life, so I might try to go become a pirate in the Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean type thing.
I imagine, Sue. I imagine your pirate chest might just be filled with like SPF 70. If you're gonna go live in the island.
Yeah. Well, the upside is that pirates never really wore shorts, so you're good. You're golden. Wear the poofy pirate pants, and you're okay.
I don't either. She bought me some shorts. She wanted me to wear some shorts, and this she bought me the short sleeve shirt and a pair of shorts, and I was like, I look like a key lime pie, and I'm not wearing that. So I said, my legs haven't seen the sun since about 2001. I am not wearing shorts. I stuck with pants, and I still got sunburn. I sunburn under this reading lamp back here. So
right. Right. And even in Patrick 7, what's going on, man? He said, I swear every time I see Sue, he's squinting a little harder to see that screen. Yeah, and that screen is only like, what is it, like 12-inch screen. I mean, it's small. It's hard to see, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us. We were just talking about that with Brian, because Brian, you said you were completely fine earlier today, and by the end of the day, your leg is crippled up. You're walking on a cane.
Yeah, I had no idea. 40 minutes with an ice pack on, it was actually worse. So I have no idea. Woke up totally fine, doing my thing. Little bit of aggravation throughout the day. And yeah, last couple hours, I've been hobbling around on a cane. I can't put any weight on it. So I don't know what's going on. It'll be a new ailment tomorrow. Don't worry. It'll be something else.
Just age. Everybody is loving on your lamp, Sue, is what it is. We've got multiple comments about your leg lamp back there.
Yeah. I got that for that's one of my Christmas presents, and a BB gun.
BB guns are fun, man. I used to live, where was that? It was in Richmond, Indiana. Just an armpit of a town, to say the least. But at that time, I was very young. My oldest daughter was she was barely a couple months old. We lived on a second-story apartment, and that apartment was right across the street from a bar. It was just a dive bar, and my second floor apartment had a railing. It was concrete railing with just little cutouts in the concrete. And I would set up there with a BB gun, late at night, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, when all these guys would be stumbling out of this bar and just start lighting them up with the BB gun. They never could see you, they never knew where it was coming from, but it was awesome. It was great target practice. No harm, no foul, just light up a few drunkards. But it was a good time. Past hours of time shooting poor drunk guys coming out of that bar. So I was prepping for later on. That's it. Once again, shooting poor drunk people. Someone is probably, one of these days, maybe they'll watch this episode. They'll be like, I knew there was some son of a bitch shoot me when I was up there. Yeah, that is awesome. Look, guys, if you guys have a question for Sue tonight, hashtag boy named Sue. Boom. That's how we're going to do that. Hashtag boy named Sue, which Sue doesn't know this because he's not on social media, but all of the posts that I made for tonight's live, I put the Boy Named Sue song up with the post. It was epic. Everybody loved it.
Johnny Cash. Yeah, that's where I got the nickname. I was actually born in 1963. I wish I could find that photo. It's somewhere in all my junk, but I got a picture of my dad holding me when I was just a year old or less. And he looks a lot like Johnny Cash, and all his friends would say, "Oh, that must be your Boy Named Sue." That's stuck.
That's how it started.
That's how it started. Yeah. So
that is how it started many moons ago.
I'm the one that came up with that spelling for it. That's one of the words I learned in French. It's actually pronounced "so," but that means buckets in French. It's a long story. I'll have to tell you guys about that sometime.
Yeah, we're gonna have to hear this. Now I'm thoroughly intrigued. I mean, Sue with an X. I was. Yeah, I mean, how long? Yeah, how long, Sue?
Oh well, it has to do with the French Foreign Legion, and you get that stupid haircut, and you got a little strip of hair up here, kind of like the Rangers. I had in the Rangers, so I was in the French Foreign Legion, and they would call everybody Buckethead and everything, and that's one of the first words I learned was, bucket. So that's the plural with the X on the end of it. That's the plural form of it. So I said, hey, that spelling right there, I'll just go by that.
Coin that phrase, coin that name. So
right.
How did Sue begin? I mean, you personally, how did you end up in France? How did you even end up in the French Foreign Legion?
Well, that is a long story, but I went to the French Foreign Legion in 1985, and that was I had just come out of the Ranger Regiment. They just formed the Ranger Regiment in 1984, I was in the 82nd Airborne, and I was still pretty young. I joined the Army when I was 17 years old, and I was in the 82nd Airborne. I went to Grenada. Then I went to the Ranger Regiment, and I was on the recon teams there. And everybody, that's where I got everybody to call me Sue. There was there were in the 82nd and the Rangers, there was 4 or 5 Rodneys around there. So, we were supposed to answer every time they would say your last name, you're supposed to answer with your first name and middle initial. Well, it got confusing. So everybody just started calling me Sue because there were so many different, Rods and Rodneys and Rodchesters and stuff like that. So I just started going by the nickname Sue. It stuck. Everybody liked it because I had an evil temper, red hair and evil little temper. So, and all the sergeants and all the senior officers were Johnny Cash fans, I guess, Western music, country Western music. So they associated me with that. And I went to Ranger school when I made buck sergeant. And I'd already been in the Ranger Regiment for 9 months or better. And I was on the Ranger. I was lucky enough to be on the Ranger recon teams. It was just little 6-man teams that go out and do recon and everything. And they told me, hey, come back as an honor graduate from Ranger school or don't come back. Well, I got my honor graduate, but and they called Colonel Downing, who I don't know if anybody's ever heard of General Downing. He's one of the founders of the Special Forces branch. But when he was a colonel, he was in charge of the Ranger Regiment. He was going to change his itinerary to pin on my Ranger tab in the military. So I was only a few days away from graduation, and I ended up getting in a fight with an officer down there, and I put him in the hospital, and I got kicked out of Ranger school. So the boy named Sue thing stuck, and everything. And and I got kicked out of the Rangers and everything, and I was feeling pretty bad. So I left the service. I ETS that same summer, and I went. I'm originally from Colorado and Utah, but the oil field had kind of closed down. There was really no jobs to be had, and I spent the summer driving a jackhammer where I-40 and I-25 meet in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So one of the worst jobs I ever did. I mean, it was a hard job, but. I was reading Soldier of Fortune magazine, and I saw this. They were hiring mercenaries out of Belgium. So I took my paycheck and I jumped on a plane. I don't know if people in the 80s, there was a airline called People's Express. It made Spirit Airlines look, professional. But I got over there. I got over there to Brussels, Belgium, and I met this. Followed the instructions in the back of the Soldier of Fortune magazine, and I end up in a place called Charlie's Bar in Brussels. And I told them, yeah, I'm ready to be a mercenary and everything. And they wanted to send me to Sri Lanka. Well, they couldn't tell me anything about what it was like. Sri Lanka is a little country off of India, and I was supposed to go down there. I guess they were fighting a communist insurgency against something called the Tigers and everything. But they couldn't tell me how I was going to get paid. They couldn't tell me anything. They're just like, oh, we're just going to send you. We're just going to send you. And I was like, well, let me think about this. This is on a Friday. So I jumped back on the train and I said, I'll come back Monday and let you know my decision. So I jumped on the train. I went down to Paris and hit the red light district and spent all my money on booze and women down there in the red light district of Paris. Wasted the rest of my money, and I decided, well, I'm standing at the train station and I saw this poster for the French Foreign Legion. I said, I've heard of those guys, So I waved a taxi and I said, hey, take me there. And he took me up to the French Foreign Legion. So I showed up at Fort de Nogent on a Sunday morning, with a hangover, and that was it. I walked in there and they took my passport, and the rest is history.
I gotta ask here. Number one, I did not realize that the little ads in the back of Soldier of Fortune was legit. That was a legit ad then. All those years of reading that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Because I used to
Colonel
look
Brown,
at that too. I was like, oh man, that'd be awesome. You know, become a mercenary. I was like, you know, it can't be real. But so
No.
you just jumped on a plane based on Soldier of Fortune ad.
Yeah.
And then ended up joining the French Foreign Legion. Did you speak French at this time?
No, I didn't. It was the funniest first day of any indoctrination that you can think of, because I had a coin in my wallet. They take all of your ID. You got to give them your wallet, your passport, and all this kind of stuff. So they take my driver's license. They take any kind of cards I got, and this is before debit cards and ATM cards and all that kind of stuff. So, but they pretty much take all your ID out. I still had a what do you call it? An IR or a reserve ID from the military. They took that. They took my driver's license, but they let me keep my Ranger coin. I had the challenge coin, and I had it was from the Ranger Recon, and it was serial number 6. I wish I still had it. Lost that in a bar fight too. So they give it back to me, and I'm looking up on this mural on the wall. They got Legion Étranger. It's ET Ranger, Legion Étranger, up on a mural on the wall behind this sergeant I'm talking to, and he doesn't speak a lick of English. And I'm trying to talk to him, and of course he just kind of yelling at me in French, thinking I could understand if he yelled at me, and I didn't understand the word he was saying. But I was pointing to my coin, and I was looking at the mural on the wall. I said, I'm a Ranger, so I'll fit right in here, a Ranger. I was trying to point at the wall, and he's like, yeah, go out there and sit down with everybody else. And there was probably a half a dozen or 8 guys that were, had showed up that morning. So there's about 8 of us out in the hallway, with little folding chairs backed up to the wall. But I could still see that mural on the wall. And there's a English guy was sitting next to me, with a Cockney accent, from London or something. And I showed him that coin, and I said, I'll do well here. I said, I'm a Ranger, and that's what's on the wall right there. Well, this guy spoke French, and he goes, mate, that says Legion Étranger. You're telling the sergeant you're a foreigner. He already knows that. And I was like, let me put this coin away. And so we went through the processing and stuff, and they take your civilian clothes and they put you in a blue tracksuit and everything. We all went downstairs, and Fort de Nogent is it's a big fort with earthen walls all the way around it, and then they have these tunnels inside the walls. But the refectoire, or the dining facility, or the mess hall as we would call it, was right in the middle of the compound inside these walls. And it was just a 1-story building and everything. And we were in line waiting to go in there, and people were going through the screen door. And I got up to the screen door. Well, the screen door slammed in my face. So I thought it was like jump school, in the American Army. So I just went to parade rest, and I was standing there, trying to look all military and professional and everything, that stupid tracksuit. And there's a line forming up behind me of people wanting to get in there. And I hear somebody behind me. He's like, "Hey, pussy!" And I'm like, "What?" I look around, and they, "Hey, pussy le port," And I was like looking around, and after a while, somebody's yelling at me and say, "Hey, pussy!" And I was like, "These guys are calling me pussy," I turned around real quick. I had my fists all clenched up and everything. I was ready to beat some ass, and that English guy was about 7 guys back. He's like, "Hey," he's saying, "push the door, mate. Let's go eat." Yeah. Right.
So that's day 1 then.
Yeah, that's not even
off to a good start.
No, there's still one more. I mean, and then after we ate and everything, and we were all put in this one big room with a bunch of bunk beds and everything, and the sergeant came in, and everybody's smoking and joking and everything like that. And they didn't have any Copenhagen over there, so I immediately started smoking Marlboro Red cigarettes. That was a dumb move, but ended up doing that. But anyway, so the sergeant comes in and he's like, "Tout le monde prend the douche." And I looked at this German guy with me, and I recognized the word douche, and I was like, "Oh boy, here it comes!" You know, we're about to get enemas. You know. But, so that's the first three words. First three words I learned in French. You know, douche and poussé, and of course étranger or ranger. So I started learning French real quick, but that was.
I agree with Patrick. Like, when are we getting your book? When's the book coming, Sue?
Yeah, right.
Like you'd have to write. I mean, that you got 13 books right here. You could be the same amount of books as what Chris has pumped out. Right out of the Jump Street.
And Chris did talk me into as right after SHOT Show. Chris and Emery and everybody talked me into starting the book. I wrote a couple chapters. I started out with my experience in Grenada, and that's where it all came from. I was in a friendly airstrike down there in Grenada, and when I first came in the Army in 1981, the Army was pretty much a joke back then. Vietnam had been over for 5 years, and of course the fall of Saigon, which became Ho Chi Minh City. There's still a lot of Vietnam vets left, but the Army was going all volunteer. The draft had stopped and everything, and so the invasion of Grenada in 1983. A lot of people thought that we went down there and we won. We flat won it, but it was such a goat screw. I mean, it was horrible. And looking back, hindsight being 2020, that I don't see how we didn't lose a lot more people. But we had 20 casualties. I mean, 20 people, 20 Americans got killed in that invasion. And the sad fact of the matter is 10 of those deaths were friendly fire. I mean, that's how untrained and what a fiasco it was with the Marines and the Navy and the 82nd Airborne. And of course the Rangers jumped into Grenada. I was in the 82nd. I didn't jump into Grenada, but if you really looked at how in chronological order, how that whole invasion went, we were lucky we didn't get a lot more people hurt, or if there was more than 600 Cuban advisors, engineers, and they were really more motivated to fight an American invasion. I think we would have been, the hurt locker real quick. But I was in that friendly airstrike, and I was my first couple of years in the Army. I didn't even get a year in the Army before I was court-martialed. Again, my temper and drinking and stuff like that. That's why the name Sue got stuck to me so hard. But I had to work my way out of that, and I just got back up to Spec 4 or E4. I got my rank back. I went from an E3 to an EOU1 real quick after that court-martial, and then I spent another year getting my rank back, and then the invasion of Grenada happened, and it was a total fiasco. And once we were hit by a friendly airstrike, there was 18 of us, and this was I was a radio operator, so I had my little satellite radio backpack set up at the what they call a TOC, or Tactical Operations Center, for the brigade, which is pretty high up there. This is Colonel Silvesi was the commander at that moment, but Colonel Silvesi and his driver weren't there, and there was 19 of us on that hill, and that airstrike. It was during a firefight and everything, but A7 Corsairs were flying around, and they came in and they hit us, which was total confusion, fog of war, if you will. The Marines were actually calling in the airstrike on a different firefight they were having at the bottom of a hill, and we were just up on the hill. I had actually fired down over their heads and everything, I was told to stop firing. But we'd set up that TOC, or that Tactical Operations Center, right next to two ZPU-2s, which are anti-aircraft guns, Russian-made anti-aircraft guns. So there's one on one side of the barracks and one on another side, and then a long wooden building, which was Cuban barracks. And we were just going to fall right in on them, use their bunks and everything. Well, I was watching that firefight that was going on at the bottom of the hill. This is about 300 feet down to the bottom of the hill. There's warehouses full of supplies and guns and ammunition and everything. Well, I was watching what was going on from up top, and I was just laying in the grass. I got told to stop firing, so I'm just, kind of laying there in the prone position, my elbows in the grass and everything. And I knew those planes were flying over us, but then one of them just came in and did a gun run on us, with that Vulcan gun, 20 millimeter, just.
Oh, yeah.
And
that thing's
nasty.
My
God, 19 people on the hill, and I was the only one that didn't get a scratch. My M16 even got a hole in the stock. That's how close it came to.
Oh,
to
wow.
Me. And for a 19-year-old kid, 19, I just turned 20, I think. I don't know. That was a huge eye opener right there, and I was like, it was that day that I started taking everything real serious. So when they talk about people convinced me to write a book and everything, I started out the first couple chapters about that goat screw, or that Chinese fire drill was the invasion of Grenada, and then I kind of backed off, and I'm writing now. I actually stopped, but I need to get motivated again. But I talked about my childhood and being raised in multiple states, and kind of like you.
Oh yeah.
I'm out in the woods.
Like a gypsy.
I'm a poor farm boy out here in this way. And then when I live with my mother, I'm living in these suburbs, in Colorado and everything. And long story short, it's just that I use the invasion of Grenada to really pull my head out of my butt and say, anything that involved military training, I took very seriously after that.
Well, yeah, catching a round through the stock of your M16, that'll wake you up. That's
that's close. And then you got all these guys, and there was only 3 or 4 guys were ambulatory. Or were wounded so bad that we had to put them on stretchers. We didn't have stretchers. We didn't have anything. What we had in our pack, and there was a few Jeeps down there, but we ended up ripping the doors off of the building to take people to the medevac to get them out to the aircraft carrier. The USS Guam was off the coast, and it was just hamburger, and there's blood, and it was pretty much a big shock to a young man like myself, that I would.
Oh yeah, at that age for sure.
Yeah.
So you ended up in the French Foreign Legion. Did you, it was only once that you went with the French Foreign Legion, or was it twice?
No, it was once.
One time. And then that ended.
I went AWOL a couple times.
It was okay. That must have been, I was like, did he go twice? Cause I remember, but there was some disappearing and then reappearing that happened throughout there. So how long total did you spend with the French Foreign Legion then?
Well, that's it's a 5-year contract. Anybody that joins the French Foreign Legion, you join for 5 years, right? And after 5 years, you can get French citizenship, and most people go basically to start over, because they'll change your name and all that kind of stuff you want to. I didn't have nothing to hide, even though I had a summary court martial and everything. I was one of the few guys that didn't have to change my name. I didn't change my name. Everybody else, whoever you met in the French Foreign Legion, you just knew that whoever you were talking to, that wasn't their real name,
Yep.
And,
and then Byron, Byron is up here.
Pardon?
I was going to say Byron's in the chat here. That's for you, Sue. And seriously, guys, go check out Graybeard Syndicate. Byron, when he does his videos, they're all pretty and fancy and stuff. Not like when I do videos on InShot and stuff. But I guess it was 4 hours 4 hours of interviewing for this, and
yeah.
yeah. So you can
it
get
was
the
that interview that got me
in-depth.
to write the book. I was like, Byron said, "Hey, why don't you come over and let's do an interview?" So we thought we were just going to be there for an hour and a half, maybe. This interview went on 4 years, and I was like, either I've lived a very adventurous life, or I can't give a very decent, a very concise interview. I can't get to the point. And it was after that interview, Byron said, "Hey, I'm going to break this up into like 3 or 4 segments, and you need to write a book." And I said,
Yes.
Everybody's been telling me that. I've already got the title. It's called "Sucks to Be Me."
All right, that's a great title. That's a great title. That sums it up. Are you in any way like this? I moved so much throughout especially my youth, that I can remember things that I did, but I cannot tell you really where I was at. Like, it is difficult for me to even put together a time frame. Like, I remember times when we moved 3 times in 1 month. Like, 3 times in 1 month we moved, and I'm like, how do you even keep track of that? You and
I had this discussion. You did. You moved a lot more than I did, but I did move often. I went to 4 different high schools, for God's sakes.
Oh yeah.
My freshman and sophomore year were in Del City, Texas, where my mom's at, and so I pretty much remember where I was at, but if I have to remember names, it's hard, because I didn't really get attached to anybody. I didn't have any lifelong childhood friends. So I can remember faces, and if I was there for a couple of years, I can remember the names. But then I went to my junior year in Gallup. Well, I started out in San Diego for just a little bit, and then I went to Gallup, New Mexico, and then I went to I graduated my senior year out of Roosevelt, Utah. But I cannot remember the names of people I went to school with. Minus 3 or 4. So I can remember the places, but I can't remember all the names of the people I met.
Well, I can't remember. I mean, I remember the faces. I can't remember anybody's name, because we would move to a different state or a different town, and then we would usually go to public school for a month or 2, and then get pulled back out and go back to homeschooling. So, like, I can't even count on both hands how many high schools I attended to, and I quit when I was 14. So at 14 years old, I dropped out, and there was over 10 high schools at least that I know I had been in. The last one was in Bruno, Piatt, Arkansas, just out in the middle of just straight hillbilly Arkansas, man, Razorback country. So, and let's throw this up here too. If you guys want to get in depth of the story, the life, it sucks to be me, Sue, then there you have it. 4 hours of awesomeness right there from Graybeard Syndicate. Remember, Byron is Black Armor Guns / Graybeard Syndicate / Tactical Rifleman / a whole bunch of other slashes. So that is all Mr. Byron Russell there, and he puts on a good show, to say the least. So cool.
There is one thing I can say where you and I have in common, because we moved around so much, and then I joined the Army. I just wanted to go live an adventure. I joined the Army to seek adventure. I told myself, well, I'm going to go for 4 years, and then I'm going to go get a college. That's how I'm going to make my college money, because our dads didn't have money to give to us for college, so I was going to go get college money, and that was a lame excuse. I just wanted to go live adventure, but neither one of us, you or I, the way we were raised, we did not respect authority.
None. Zero. I couldn't, man. I got kicked out of school whenever we would go to public school. The bad part was until I was in my late 20s, I was real skinny. Like skinny. I was always tall, but super lanky. And so, I mean, at 23 years old was when I quit fighting MMA, and I was a $175 at 23. Now I'm 250, 260. You know, I've went all the way up to 300, depending on lifting weights or how many donuts I've lifted. But I got beat up nonstop, man. Or it was a constant fight. Every time I would go to a public school, it was, hey, look at the skinny little kid in the dirty clothes, you know, wearing his dad's shirt and stuff. Cause we was poor. We just poor kids. And, man, I got beat down nonstop. So you had to get tough. You had to toughen up. But, yeah, it was rough growing up. It didn't feel rough, but it was hard to, it was just hard to fit in because we were in and out of so many different schools and so much moving. It became a blur. It still is a blur. I still have stuff in boxes that I have not opened since I was in my teens. And one day I'm going to open them. It's going to be like Christmas all over again.
Well, the other hard thing too is to lock into a goal or an occupation, because you and I have had these conversations too, where you know we're jack of all trades but master of none just by our upbringing. But I was in the military. I got out of the military. Like I said, I drove that jackhammer for that summer. Then went off to the French Foreign Legion and was a machine gunner. Then I only did a year and a half in the French Foreign Legion, and I came back, and I ended up a good friend of mine. We were both young, so I ended up in northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, you know, Independence, Kentucky, and that's where I got into just all kinds of different odd jobs, and I worked for DHL, loading planes at night, and I did construction, got into construction and everything. But I tried to go to college, but that whole VEEP program, the college program that they had back in the 80s was just horrible. It wasn't the GI Bill that the guys get now. So I ended up just kind of bumping all over the country, you know, until I went back into the service, and I think that was about 1988, 89, and I went all over the country, from down to Florida, worked in Kentucky's Phoenix, Arizona. I was up in Nevada. I ended up all the way up in Seattle, Washington. And I ran into a guy I was in the Rangers with, and he's like, "What are you doing? Bumping around all over the country." He said, "You're a great soldier." And I was like, no, I'm giving that Ranger stuff up. I don't want to be a paratrooper. I don't want to be a Ranger no more. You know, just because I enjoyed doing the soldiering thing and going out in the woods and everything, but then you always had to come back and do the garrison stuff, and all the officers were all about, you know, prompt and dress and you know, looking good and all this kind of stuff. And that never, you know, especially after Grenada, that I said that doesn't win you any battles, you know.
All right.
But this guy told me, he's like, no, don't go to the Rangers, go Special Forces. And he's like, Green Berets. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could ever make that. And he said, you're tough. He's like, you're tougher than hell. You can make this stuff, you know, just keep your mouth shut and go to the training. And he says, I'll introduce you to the commander. He was in 12th Group Reserves. And I said, okay, introduce me. And, you know, when you're in reserves or National Guard, you know, you might be a lawyer or you might be a cop or a construction worker, but you still, you know, then you go into your reserve duty, and they all put on their Green Berets, and they have stripes, or they have, you know, they're commissioned officers or whatever, and they do great training on the weekends. So I showed up and I interviewed with that company commander, and he's like, absolutely, you know, you used to be a radio operator. We need radio operators. I'm going to send you as a radio operator. I really don't want to be a radio operator. He said, yeah, you're going to be a radio operator. So I challenged him. I said, if you can get me out of here in a week, I'll go. And he said, show up for drill this weekend. I mean, it was such a flurry. I mean, I showed up on Saturday morning. I'm sorry, I showed up on Friday afternoon at Fort Lewis, Washington. They gave me these pieces of paper. They said, go down here to clothing and sell. I had uniforms and everything, and I was fixing everything together. And he said, be prepared to jump out of an airplane tomorrow. No pre-jump or nothing. We all got on the airplane. We hooked up our static lines. We jumped out of an airplane. He said, now you're good to go. You're good to go. And he said, yeah, if all you got to do is pass your physical, and we'll send you off to send you off to the Q course. And I was like, man, that's fast. And he's like, wait a minute, your MOS has been combined with another one, so you got to go back to Fort Gordon first. So initially, I thought I'd made a mistake because I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and I was in typing class, because there was still a radio operator thing, but they used to do teletype machines, and I needed to pass a typing class, and I was like, this is not going to make me a Green Beret. I met a bunch of other guys who were getting ready to reserve and National Guard guys. And this is when they first started selection. I'm sure you guys have all heard of selection. It's a 3-week process before you even get allowed to attend this training for a Green Beret. You got to go through a 3-week a selection and assessment course, and it's tough. It is really tough. But we heard about it. I think they were on class 3 when I went, and it was tough. You start out with individual events and they compass course and all this kind of stuff, and everything you do, you have at least 50-pound rucksack on, and that's minus your food and water, and then you got to carry your weapon with you everywhere with no sling. You're not allowed to sling it or anything like that. So you always got to have your weapon with you, and you're out there at Camp McCall, which is in North Carolina, just south of Fort Bragg, about 10 miles. And you're out there in the swamps and everything, and I'm sitting there cussing and taking that rifle and beating my rucksack and everything, and you think nobody's watching you, but then you get back and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, stop beating up your rucksack, and then you realize that there's somebody watching you all the time. So you do a week of individual training, and then you do a whole bunch of other obstacle courses and things like that, and then the last week is you get together in a 12 and 15 man groups, and you do team events, and one guy gets picked to be the leader, and then you come around a corner on a dirt road, and there's a Jeep with 3 tires on it and a bunch of poles and lashings and everything, and like, okay, get this Jeep 6 miles up the road, and there's only like 3 tires on it, so you got to figure out how to use your group, and it's
Jeez.
And that's just one scenario. I don't know
That's
if I'm allowed to tell you all the stuff that's in there, but it's tough. It's rough. And
number one, John Weaver. That's my son-in-law. If you listen to directions at the beginning of the podcast, it's #boy named Sue, not at Sue. It wasn't at Sue, but I didn't expect anything less out of you, John, because you never could follow directions. But what's the best
like it
place
runs in the
to
family.
live? That's son-in-law, not son. There's a difference. So I tried to kill John for a while there, but then the grandsons come along, and I was like, well, I don't want him to not have a father. So, But he says, what's the best place you lived and felt at home?
The best place I lived was Calvi, Corsica. I mean, to me, that was one of the most interesting places in the world. That's an island in the Mediterranean, just above Sardinia. Corsica is where Napoleon is from. All right.
Okay.
And the Corsicans are neither French or Italian. They have their own unique language, but they speak French and Italian and Corsican. And they're a rough bunch. They're all smugglers and stuff like that. But the island's huge compared to the ones I was just on in the Virgin Islands. But you can be on the beach in the morning and getting sunburned to run along the beach, and then you get on a truck. And I was in the mountain company of the French Foreign Legion. That's where I was in Corsica when I was stationed in their parachute regiment. And by the afternoon, we're doing ski training in mountains that are 9,000 feet tall.
Wow.
But I never felt at home there,
Right. It was just one of the cooler places to live.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think here in North Carolina is probably the most like home for me. Everything else, I don't know. I just got tired of moving, I think is what it was, is like Forrest Gump, the movie where he's running And then all of a sudden he just dead stops in the road and he's like, well, I'll go home now. That's kind of, I got here. I'm like, well, I'm done moving, after 100 and something times. That's enough for me.
Well, and then I felt at home in Cripple Creek, Colorado. I lived right outside of town. My house was at 10,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains. I felt at home there, but it wasn't really a smart move. I was in 10th Group Special Forces then, and I wanted to be an hour away from Fort Carson, so they wouldn't call me in on Sundays when we were before Fort Carson. 10th Group was at Fort Devens, and I lived on post. And anytime they wanted to do an inventory or something, I was the guy on the team that they would call to come open the team room and help do this, on a Sunday. Oh, it'll only take 30 minutes and you're there for 4 hours and everything. So I was like, so I moved up to Cripple Creek, Colorado. And that's where I felt at home. I was raised in Colorado and all over Colorado, but mostly in the mountains until I started high school. And then, that's something that we talk about from the way the culture was back in the 70s and 80s for us. And you look at Colorado now, I wouldn't live in Colorado now if you paid me. I mean, it's just,
yeah,
they've gone worse than California, and I have friend, well, Emery loved Colorado too. He was actually, campus police in Boulder, where those guys just got burned,
Gotcha.
So imagine Emery, Israeli commando being campus police today in Boulder. He would have killed that guy. I have no doubt.
Bad.
But Emery and I, both of us, have said if we ever go back to Colorado, it would be as insurgents to take our state back.
Yeah, no doubt.
Emery asked me that about a year ago. Emery said, where's your end goal once you leave Pittsburgh? I said, I'd love to end up in Colorado. And he said, don't do it, Brian. Don't do it,
Brian.
He told me some nightmare stories. And I'm like, all right, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Hey, look here, Brian. Me and Sue's right here in North Carolina. This is God's country. This is where it's at.
I got to get out of this place.
Yeah.
Because you're right in town, aren't you, Brian?
No, I'm not in the city. I'm in the suburbs. So, I mean, I'm not far enough out there.
Right.
Pittsburgh has started spreading further north, and there's some really great land further north, but everybody's caught on to the fact there's really good land up there. And it's pretty inexpensive.
It's cold.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It'll get cold.
And it's real cold.
An hour and 15 minutes from here, it'll be 20 to 25 degrees colder in the winters. Easy.
Oh, yeah. And I had that, I had a brain aneurysm a couple years ago. So I had to have brain surgery and everything, Brian. And I was, and my wife, I've always told my wife that I'd like to move out in the Rocky Mountains after I retire from the military and everything. And she's from the East Coast. So she's kept me on the, in the East, but we moved up into the Appalachians here. And when I was recovering from the brain surgery, she's like, I'll take you. She says, we'll sell this place and we'll go out to the Rocky Mountains. And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, I lived out there before. I said, for example, I was in Cripple Creek, Colorado, and I think I got out of the hospital in October, and I said, yeah, I would be looking at my wood pile, and we'd burn all that, and then I'd be looking at 4 feet of snow and couldn't get my chainsaw started, and I couldn't get out of the driveway. I said, I'm happy right here in the Appalachians, these mild winters. I'll take it.
My buddy owns a school out in Colorado. He lives in Cripple Creek. And his school is, I don't know, about 40 minutes away. It's called the Survival University.
Yeah.
Yes. In my opinion, it's one of the best schools in the country. I mean, they run phenomenal classes. I mean, he's got 2 different properties now. He actually brings in a helo and lands that for a mock med evac course. He does some really great courses, really cool courses.
Yeah, Colorado's got some great terrain out there. Cripple Creek is like a little gem. It almost closed down. They allow gambling there, but Cripple Creek's where Tesla had a lab. Nikola Tesla actually studied electricity there because you can be sitting in my house. You could be sitting there and just watch a ball lightning form in the basement and just go like that. And then I'd have to go and I'd have to unplug all the TVs and everything and take the surge protector off and throw it in a closet full of blown out surge protectors. And like, damn it, and go get a new one.
Now that's what happened. Did you just say in your basement?
Yeah. It's amazing. Ball lightning just forms up on those mountains. You know,
that is insane.
I saw that some sort of like one of the world's strangest phenomena. Ball lightning.
Yeah.
It's like this beach ball of lightning just bouncing across the sky. It's weird.
There's only one place in the country that has more lightning strikes than Cripple Creek, Colorado, and that's Tampa Bay, Florida. That's why the hockey team's called the Lightning, you know. So very interesting place. It had electricity and trolley cars before New York or San Francisco because there were so many gold mines around it that they've set up a trolley system that was all run off electricity so the miners could change shifts, you know, for all the gold mines up there. They were pulling gold out of there right around, you know, 1898, the turn of the century. They were pulling gold out there like crazy. It was almost the capital of Colorado. They almost moved it from Denver to Cripple Creek, but then the gold ran out and it became a ghost town. So
Leadville was a big spot, wasn't it? Leadville, Colorado. That's where Unsinkable Molly Brown. That's where she, I think, made her for.
Yeah, those were silver mines, and Leadville also was during World War II. It was the winter camp for the 10th Mountain Division. And at World War II, you needed 3 letters of acceptance to get into this division. They wanted to create an Alpine unit in the American Army, so you had to be a cowboy or know something about pack mules, or you had to know something about the mountains, or be a skier. And they started out at Fort Carson, Colorado in the summertime. They teach all these guys how to, pack mule trains and stuff like that. And then they would leave at the end of summer and they would go all the way to Leadville, from Colorado Springs up to Leadville through the mountains. And I followed some of those trails. You can still see the pitons and everything where they pulled all their equipment up there. They did that 2 winters in a row. They live in the winter at Leadville. And then they went to Italy, and all their equipment and their mules, the Liberty ship that was heading to Italy, it got torpedoed by a U-boat. So all their mules and all their skis went to the bottom of the ocean. But that 10th Mountain Division, it got in Italy, and it kicked the crap out of 9 German divisions. What's interesting about that, and up there in Leadville, you can go to Ski Cooper, and you can see all the names of everybody they lost. There's like 600 names on a big monument there. But all those guys that were in 10th Mountain, they came back and they started the snow skiing industry in the United States. Snow skiing wasn't a big sport until after World War II.
Yeah, I know that.
Huh.
That's very interesting. Leadville is one of the highest incorporated cities in the United States. Yeah, 10,000 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to put a plug. This last weekend we were at the Jeepin' to the Hollers. Mountain Readiness was down there setting up tents and doing our part with Stephanie Johnson and raising money for everybody down there in Burnsville area because of Hurricane Helene, because the government ain't doing nothing.
No.
Nada. So she raised a good chunk of money down there. They had a Jeep donated that they gave away, which was awesome. And Stephanie has a new podcast, a live stream coming out, I believe this week. The Russ of Oz, Back Behind the Curtain. Russ, do we have anything for promo for that, or anything for people to be able to find her? He's looking here. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I was just in Marshall picking up this trailer. Of course, I told you that I was delivering supplies all over the place. There she is.
There we go, guys. Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be done by the Russ of Oz, Mr. Russ with Broken Spokes Productions. And he'll be hosting that one because he can't get enough of here and the Angery American podcast, and who knows how many more. Oh, Pete, the Eden Army podcast. You're just racking them up, Russ. You got them everywhere. But make sure to check that out with Stephanie. A great cause. And of course, looking through Burnsville, there are still mountains of garbage and trash laying everywhere and stuff tore up. It's just, I tell you, the people with the the tree trucks, the tree picking up trucks. You know what I'm talking about, Sue? It's like a big, huge, they got a crane in the back of the one where they can reach out of the trailer and pick the trees up. Whoever that is making a killing, because them trucks are all over the place. And with good, I mean, it's needed.
Well, I tried to
piles.
Stephanie and I tried to talk to some people to get some money raised for that. We were having the idea that we could take some of that wood and take it to a sawmill or use one of those mobile sawmills, and we could plank that out and sell it to countries like Saudi Arabia. You know, they're building new cities out there. You know, all their trim and everything for wood. We'd sell it to Saudi Arabia, or we'd sell it to the gun making industry for guys that still use wooden stalks, because some of those trees are just awesome wood.
Oh yeah. Humongous, poplars and hickory and oak. It's
walnut, absolutely gorgeous wood. But I heard a rumor during some of our I don't know how to confirm or deny this, but the rumor I heard is when you get money from the government, you're not allowed to profit off of any debris clearance. I don't know if that's true or not. So.
Hard telling. I'm sure someone's profiting off of it, just not who should be, if the truth be known.
Well, that trailer I picked up, that was in Marshall, which is on the other side of 26 from Burnsville. And Marshall was just down from Asheville, just upriver, I should say, from Asheville. So in Asheville, North Carolina, there's we talked about this before, where all those right on the Arts District, they had all those warehouses and factories that just ended up with nothing but foundations there. Well, one of them was a PVC pipe factory, right?
Right.
And I just picked up that trailer just the other day, still sitting in the driveway. I got to get it back to Special Forces Association. It belongs to them, but I left it. It's an enclosed trailer, and I left it for them to keep their supplies in for the winter. And what's sad is all that PVC and stuff on the right there on the French Broad River is still stuck in the trees and everything. It looks like pixie sticks out there. And then you can look across the river, and there's a train track going in there that had all these freight cars on it. You know, look like ore cars where we saw it out. But those are all still sitting out there, and they're full of debris. So I don't know how long it's going to take to clean up this mess, but I don't think people understand how devastating these natural disasters are and how long they take to clean up.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the trees alone, like watching those trucks that pick up all the tree debris, they've got staging spots all through there. And I was looking at some of these, look like old cornfields that just threw all the trees in. I mean, these things they're 30 feet in the air and, football fields long, just of trees mashed in that they're trying to dig up and grind. They got a big grinder out there, commercial grinders, grinding them all up into mulch. But it's like, I mean, just the tree debris alone, not including all the cars and, houses and garbage and stuff like that. I mean, it is insane, the magnitude of just junk that got moved around.
Yeah. And I'd have to talk to Stephanie. Maybe we'll ask her on her first podcast, but we talked about it at Mountain Readiness. We're still not sure what the casualty count is. They're still finding bodies and body parts,
right. What are they at now? What are they even saying? Because
I don't know.
Not accurate.
I don't know.
Nobody even knows.
I know the local congressman, when Troy, my neighbor, Troy, but we were trying to participate in a town hall meeting. Of course, we were delivering supplies, so we're on the radio, and we were going to ask us some questions. But that night we were listening to the radio, and I want to say that was right before Thanksgiving. They were saying the casualties were 89 dead, and we knew for a fact there were a lot more than that. Hell, there's just one town that that we counted. Just the people that were missing were up in the 60s, 65 or something like that. Yeah.
As of April 2nd, so 2 months ago today, 107 verified storm-related fatalities in North Carolina. So I thought he could
107.
107.
107.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
that's still way low. I just off of there was 27 affected counties, 25 of them in North Carolina. And I think I was just talking to I worked with through the tracking and stuff like that, and Charlie Williams. I was able to talk to most of the emergency managers in most of those 6 or 7 counties that I was working in, and I had it up to 300 people that were missing. They were missing. Right. So, and then I had somebody tell me that, well, they can't put them on the casualty list until they find a body and they get it identified.
Yep.
I don't.
Now
they were saying
I mean,
there's no more missing people, but I just don't want to believe them.
Nah, it seems a little, it seems a little funky for what happened to be that low. And you know what? I hope it is an accurate number. I just don't think it is.
Yeah.
So, but the hour is up. So we basically tonight made it through about 2 years of your life, Sue. So we have many more to get through. That was it.
Well, that's what scares me about the book. If damn thing's going to be about this,
it's going to be the Encyclopedia Britannica. Is what it's going to end up, like 82 books long. Yeah, no, for sure. But it's a blast. I've had a blast. Brian, I know you've been busy as all get out, trying to get orders out and doing the survival gear, all that stuff. But what do you want to leave us with?
I've done not as much as Sue, obviously, but I have done quite a bit of training in all sorts of different facets. And listen, you can train all day, train all night. Sometimes you learn more sitting around the campfire, talking with guys for a few hours than you do actually going through the training. You have a lot more golden nuggets, so to speak, you can take away from it. And I've been on a couple of the shows here with Seaux Larreau. Sue, I've seen you on a couple podcasts. That wasn't on myself, just being a spectator. And that's what I like to consider whenever Sue pops on a show. It's like sitting around a campfire with the guys, because he doesn't go deep in the specifics of training, things like that. But you can learn more from listening to this guy in an hour or two than you can going out and doing training for 3 days solid. I swear to God, you can.
I second that.
And go subscribe to was it Graybeard Syndicate? I actually just subscribed to it. Byron popped up.
Byron, man. Byron is the man as well. Byron does he's got a really good YouTube channel. He puts a lot of time into each one of his episodes. His intro is good. I mean, he does all the things. And his podcast room is like off the hook, man. He put some serious time and money into that thing. That place is cool, to say the least. But Sue, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us tonight.
No, I appreciate you inviting me, and that's basically what I want to leave everybody with is this one. I'm supposed to be writing this book and everything, but there's just one commodity we never get enough of, and that's time. So when you find yourself just goofing off, pick up that. I'm sitting down, like Brian was saying, I'm sitting down and just watching these YouTube shorts, and just either reminding myself how to tie knots that I never saw before, or how to make charcoal, or just simple stuff. YouTube is just full of these little shorts, and the more you look at them, the more they'll send you. You get the history on YouTube. And so if you find yourself just sitting around for 10 minutes, in the military we used to call it hip pocket training, and I like just watching those, and then I'll pick maybe one out of them once a week and go out and try it, whether it's tying new knots or just cutting up a bunch. I'm always cleaning up the yard, and I'll cut up a bunch of stuff and put it in a tin and pop the hole in it and throw it in the fire when I'm burning all the other branches. And I got a whole tin full of charcoal,
Yep. Now that's awesome.
Just great little tricks that everybody teaches you. And I invite everybody to just try to learn as much as you can, because I'm sneaking up on, 62 years old, and I feel like I'm always learning something. That's why I like hanging out with you guys. I'm always learning off of you just as much as I teach in anything.
Always a student. That's the way to be. Now here's something else. Use this technology while it's available, because who knows how long it will be. It's Who knows? I don't know. And with the way things go with the social media, they keep changing stuff around and shutting down good channels. I know Carl's gotten beat up on YouTube. Like they just keep killing his lives and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of this good, useful stuff may cease to exist as time goes on. So I will tell you right now, I've been using Google Lens for learning wild edibles and medicinal plants. When I move my goats, wherever I take the goats to for the new paddock, I take pictures of all the plants and check out to see if any of them are toxic or poison to the goats, and use Google Lens for that. I just go right down through it, and boom, man, I am and I'm learning plants in the meantime, making sure the goats don't die. Don't want to eat any.
There's an app called Picture This. And Picture This is really good for plant identification. I love it. I've been using it for a couple of years.
Yeah, good one, Brian. I've had that one. I used to have it on my old phone, but that's a great app. You just take a picture of it and it'll tell you what it is. Yeah.
They have them for insects and like the same company makes them for like insects and butterflies and birds and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, that's a good one.
It's a great way to learn the plants and even more importantly, the plants that are in your area. Because I've learned so much that I've got right here on the homestead, man. It's just, there is food everywhere right here. Especially if you just let it grow a little bit instead of mowing it all down, man. I've got 3 different types of wild mint growing right here in the ditch. I've got a mountain mint. I've got what is the other one? There's a spearmint, a wild spearmint, and a third. I can't remember the name of the third one, but, nah, man, take advantage of technology while we've got it, because who knows how long it's going to be available. But it's been a blast, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And y'all make sure to come back and visit us next Monday. Have no idea who's going to be on because I just randomly start calling people. Hey, you want to be on the live stream? I'm the worst about pre-planning stuff. So, but it was great. We got to have you back on again, Sue, so we can talk some more about the life.
Yeah, I'll try to keep on writing a book, and I'll just feed you little bits and pieces.
Yeah, well, we can put a campfire up on the screen, the fire, and then you can just open your book and you can read us a little excerpt, So,
well, I was talking to Byron, and I said, hey, if this book ever sells and they want to make a movie about it, I don't know who's playing me, but it ain't going to be me because I'm not going through that crap again.
That is awesome. Well, on that note, y'all, stay safe, stay ready. We will see you next Monday. Roll us out of here, Russ.